morning. Can you hear me now? Good morning, Jamaica. Welcome to your show, The Rock. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Blair, and this is your one-of-a-kind radio talk show where we discuss all sides of a topical issue that seems to have the church and its congregants on a whole just thinking about how we can just get close to God and we can delve further into the Word of God, causing us to just question things that we've heard, studied, believed, or read, causing churches to open or restart discussions on issues very often glossed over and often misunderstood. We take on various biblical-based issues and do our best to show Christians how we can advance through the Word of God. Well, we are definitely real here. Our guests come on and they just hit everything for six. And we talk about the things, man. We talk about everything that just answers the questions for you by looking at what does the Bible say. This is a discussion where all views contend, but they may not stand the question, what does the Bible say? That is the test. Yes, the Bible does have an answer for all of us. And I know sometimes it comes down to what we've been told, what we've understood, but also what we're having the chance to learn. A very special welcome to all of you joining us by the Love101.org, where we stream live, and welcome to those joining us via the Love 101 FM app, downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. We're now also live on Facebook and YouTube, and of course, man, I love to communicate. I get to hit and to communicate directly with my Facebook listeners. So good morning, Facebook. You can start typing your good mornings, but I really want you to be active today. As I've said for the last few weeks, this is the time to just share your experiences and to help somebody with what's happened in your life. We're talking a lot about fathers. I know this may be strange for some of you, but you know, mothers get all the glory. But we really know that the real issue is fathers. I go back to the fact I learned as a youth Christ. When mothers get saved, 20% of the family follows them to the Lord. When a man gets saved, when a father gets saved, when a husband gets saved, 80% of the time, his family joins him and serves the Lord. So there's something about fathers. That's why we're not leaving this topic. So we're continuing. It's important that we speak about the father issue because we have lots of work to do. So this week we're focusing on the father image. What does the Bible say about the father's image? What's your present image of your earthly father? And what is your ideal image? Well, I tell you, so many people have been missing out on all the benefits of having their father. And we're going to address this in Jamaica. This is where we work for all the change. Yes, we work for change. Got to give you a piece of my mind, as I always do. What does Steve say? You know, I'm very concerned about several things. I was driving this past weekend to visit my father-in-law up there in Long Lane, going towards Stony Hills. As often as I drive through Cassava Peace, I get very concerned, and I'm really going to call out the police and the authorities on this. Why? Because as always, I'm seeing garbage in the gullies piled up, and we're approaching the rainy season. Have you ever driven over the toll and seeing all that garbage if you're driving from Portmore, all that garbage on the left side coming onto the bridge, going over into the sea? It just drives me crazy because I'm a lover of water. I love the sea. And I always say, yes, I lived in Cayman, from Cayman. And at the end of the day, we don't have rivers, we don't have mountains, we don't have all the beauty that Jamaica has. So I get very concerned when I see Jamaicans not respecting what God's giving to you. Well, the goods are full again. And I'm really calling out the authorities now to say it's time that we start fining people for throwing garbage in the gully. Mind you, as listening to Chevy this morning, and a lady called in and said, Chevy, they've not taken up our garbage, and she has to be burning it. Of course, in most places in the world, burning garbage is illegal. In Jamaica, we've been doing it for years. However, not only do I want to see fines for those dumping the garbage in the gully, we've got to call out the requisite authorities to say, what do we need to do to get more trucks on the road, to get better schedules so that garbage is not left out around the place, so that people don't have to be burning it. So we're going to work on that. And we're going to have a talk with our authorities on the garbage. I will personally speak with them and see what we can do to make this a better issue. But in the meantime, please, please, please don't let me see that garbage in the sea. I tell you, I don't go to Herro Beach anymore because the last 2 times I went there were plastics and bottles all over me. Well, in the news this past week, a young man, it is said, murdered a pregnant lady. We don't know the circumstances. At least I've not heard all the circumstances, but I want you to know that there's a concern on my part. 2 concerns actually. One, it seems to me that all the mental issues that are going on during COVID are being ignored. More and more during this past year, we've seen so many murder, suicide, or just murders of spouses or lovers, especially by men. And we're not addressing the fact that there are mental issues going on at this time, financial, emotional, mental issues, real stupid things. Now, with all this happening, let me just say this. It is wrong to murder. It is wrong to kill somebody because you disagree with them. It is wrong to kill somebody because they did something wrong. So we've got to get back to the basics in Jamaica. And that leads me to the second point. I'm told that the gentleman was almost beaten, if not beaten, by people. And I can remember very clearly that one of my neighbors, while I was growing up, was murdered because he stole. And I received some pictures also this week of 2 young men from Kingston who were murdered because they were. I'm saying once again to our Jamaican people, murder is wrong. And the way we go about our jungle justice is wrong. So we've got to wheel and come again, folks, and respect this thing called life and understand that justice will be handed out in a court of law. Now, I'm also going to talk about the court of law because once again, I'm seeing people being sent to prison or to lock up for things that can be dealt with in a rather judicious way in the court without these people having to go to be locked away from their family. Certainly, folks, there's a reason that we have lockups and there's a reason why we have prisons. I'm a former prison chaplain. I've served with some of the worst criminals in the world. But I'm saying this once again. We're already overcrowded. We already have too many men in the prisons, too many fathers in the prisons. We have so much going on the outside. So I'm coming with a solution right now that some of you may not like. As I was reading the paper that former MP Imani was arguing with the government to say that we should have more Zozos, or at least a Zozo in the areas downtown. Now, I'm going to say this. I probably want to stand with her upon the basis of one thing. I'm going to expose myself. This morning, I was waiting to give a ride to a man who walks to work with, he can't walk, he uses crutches, and he walks a mile every morning. So I've been picking him up now for about 7 months on the road and giving him a ride to his work. While I was waiting for him to come out, I opened my door and I spat on the ground, and then something just said to me, don't you see that Jamaica's issue is that everything goes? Because in some countries, in places like Indonesia and Singapore, when they had their problems, they made a step towards discipline. And so now in those countries, they'll fine you for peeing on the road, for spitting on the road, for doing all the things that we take for granted. Twice in the last week, people broke the stoplight while I was the first car driving out. And if I was not the kind of person that took the time to wait, I would have been hit. I'm saying to Jamaica, This issue of discipline has to change. So, Mr. Prime Minister, here is Pastor Blair calling you out. Yes, you're a good man. And so is the leader of the opposition. So I'm going to call you guys out. We want, well, I believe, I'm joining with Imani. More soldiers on the road, more discipline, more enforcement, because as long as there is enforcement in the country, people will slow down. As long as there's enforcement in the country and police on the road and soldiers on the road, we may, I'm not going to say we are, but we will see less of the crime that we're seeing. And most importantly, the Zozos, I believe in the Zozos because it's not just about locking down an area, but it's also about sending in the psychologists, sending in the social workers. And we need to change this country quickly. I've said so much is in my heart, so much pain. Slow down, drivers. Come on, let's save some lives and stop the murdering, folks. Think about the life that you have, the life that your child has. Think about somebody murdering your son, your daughter. Think. I'm Steve Blair. So much on my heart, so much on my mind. I call the church not to pray, but to act. I'll be right back. The fathers, that's the issue today. The father image, the topic. We celebrated Father's Day on Sunday, and as we fetted our own, what images of fathers were we honoring and praising? Fathers, when you look at yourselves, what do you see? Are you raising children or just supporting them, giving them a money? If you do, at least. Is our image of father healthy? Does it need rethinking and or repairing? I say yes. Post all your comments on this topic on our Facebook Live, the Rock Broadcast, or send us a WhatsApp message or voice note to 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. Let's hear your voice about fathers, especially if you didn't have one, especially if it's been painful, especially if they've never really been the program. And prepare to call in and be a part of the discussion with my very special guests. We'll have them on to start the program with a bang in 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
In the Sagicor bonus savings, we're all in.
Sagicor Bank bonus savings account. The full savings account from Sagicor Bank.
We're all in.
Bonus savings account pays you monthly interest, plus a bonus each month to top up your savings.
In the Sagicor bonus savings,
the bigger the pool of savings, the bigger the bonus. Together, everyone earns more with
Sagicor bonus savings. We're all in.
We're all in with Sagicor Bank bonus savings account.
Everybody have rights. Man, woman, and child, whether you're big or small. Everybody have rights. Look up for one another, we are sister and brother. Everybody have rights. Nobody no fi intimidate you. Nobody no fi discriminate you. As human being, respect you. Learn your rights, learn to protect you. Everybody have rights. Man, woman, and child, whether you're big or small. Everybody have rights.
Brought to you by the National Family Planning Board and the Office of the Public Defender.
Bashco time! All the things that you need for your home and prices so low, you will never need a loan at Bashco. Really at Bashco. Shopping. Appliances, house with furniture and rugs, beefs and linens and glass and mugs at Bashco. When you're shopping at Bashco. Whether the north or so in the east and the west, Bashco. Them all over, they must be the best at Bashco. At Bashco. When you're shopping at Bashco. At Bashco. Giving you more.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling blessed.
We're in Zada, I Love Summer campaign in St. Catherine is our first stop. So this Death Tuesday in Zada Live, June 22. Join us for another show packed with good music and inspirational stories. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock and 2:15 inside the evidence. We hear from Riverly born and bred Christopher Allen. He will join us to share his story, how he came to Christ after being a gunman for years. Then at 3 p.m. we go beyond the pulpit of Bishop Ron Edwards, ODJPMO. He's from the Lighthouse Worship Center, St. Catherine. All this and more will come alive on the family station, Love 101.
Everybody wave, get something away. Let's get up and go. Time to explore.
It's here! I love summer!
The time you have been waiting for is here.
Don't miss out on the exciting features and engaging discussions.
As Love 101, the family station goes through the nation,
Highlighting people, places, and the peculiar promises of Jamaica land we love.
It's I Love Summer. You won't be bored.
You will laugh and play.
You will worship and pray.
You'll be educated and edified.
Don't miss a beat.
I love summer! It's time to explore!
I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it.
All right, loads of excitement, lots of exciting things planned for the summer treat. I love.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to The Rock. And I'm your host, Pastor Steve Blair. This is a great day. And we continue today to talk about fathers and what our fathers mean, or the image of fathers. Today on the show, we have some very special guests, Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper and Reverend Clinton Chisholm. Reverend Dr. Roper is former president of the JTS, the Jamaica Theological Seminary. His academic experience includes lectureship and tutorship at the seminary, and also at United Theological College, International University of the Caribbean, and CGST. Now, this is going to be a show because the two men on the show today are two of the top theological minds in Jamaica. And the other person, Reverend Clinton Chisholm, also an author and periodically writes freelance articles in the Gleaner and the Observer, as does Pastor Dr. Roper. He's been a student of 6 universities and schools of higher learning: the JTS, the Jamaica School of Music, the University of the West Indies, Sheffield University in England, Baylor University in the USA, and the International Academy of Apologetic, Evangelism, and Human Rights. He's been a lecturer, a guest lecturer, and adjunct professor, tutor, and teaching assistant in several institutions. So we bring our guests in to at least get a start on the father image. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Are you hearing me?
Yes, Dr. Clinton Chisholm, nice to see you again today.
Well, good to be back with you, my friend.
Yes. The father image. The father image. Let's talk about, from your pastoral experience, counselor maybe, what have you seen out there as the image of father in the minds of our Jamaican people, especially maybe even young boys and girls?
That's me?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a bit. I'm not sure if you were directing the question at me or at Garnet.
Okay, we're looking at the father image. What have you seen over the years as a pastor and counselor in terms of the image of a father in the minds of Jamaican people?
It has been quite a patchy picture for me, from my observation. Mothers are deeply respected. I remember the unfortunate experience of telling a boy about his mother when I was in high school, and I ended up in the sandpit. I don't know, I didn't walk into it, so the fellow threw me into the sandpit because I was foolish enough to tell him about his mother. If I told him about his father, I think I probably would have gotten away with it. So people don't look up to father, they look down on fathers, and the image is not quite nice. But we need to change that. It has been changing, but I don't think many people have got the memorandum yet that it has been changing positively. Fathers are becoming more responsible. They are, rising up to the level that they are expected to be at. We are not perfect yet, not where we ought to be, but I think it's improving.
Okay. Pastor Roper, you there when I told a struggle in Jamaica, Pastor Roper, for people when it comes to fathers, and hence we celebrate Mother's Day, but we slide through Father's Day.
And I, Clinton, how are you?
Hi, quite cool, Garnet.
Yes, I think I concur with Clinton that the narrative on fathers have not has not caught up with the reality, right? So in a way, we suffer from a collection of anecdotes, and the anecdotes that are in circulation are not anecdotes that flatter the image of fathers. And we have to tackle the two things simultaneously. We have to tackle the underlying social reality of male dysfunction, right? There is a recurring. So you go to your secondary school system, and what you see there is inimical to the positive psychological and psycho-emotional development and moral development of young males. And that is the factory producing a lot of the social ills about which we speak. We have to tackle that. There's no way around it. But on the other hand, we also have to tackle the narrative. We are a people who like salacious stories, and our menfolk provide us with a lot of opportunities to tell those stories or to make them up. And we have other stories. So here are three fathers, me, you, and Clinton. And each of us, I think, is loved by our children and highly regarded in our own families. But that's not the story you will hear. And even us today, we are not talking about good examples of grace and compassion among fathers. We're talking about unworthy behavior among fathers. So I think the problem is twofold. One is to tackle the underlying reality, and two is to bring the narrative to catch up with the reality of positive fatherhood which exists.
Pastor Clinton, the narrative that exists often also sees mothers not allowing children to see fathers because of bad relationships. Often also sees boys growing up not understanding what it is to be a man or how to be a father. We will talk later about addressing this, but is it that people don't see the importance of a man or a father in the life of a home?
I think largely ignorance is at work to a large degree in how people see fathers. And I'm going to be reflecting a little more on a sermon I heard. I listened to two sermons, one by Garnet Sunday morning and one by a friend, Justice Marva McDonald Bishop at Barbican Baptist Church. And I will highlight a section from Barbara. Justice Bishop was guest speaker at Barbican. And she made a point which, interestingly, without listening to one another, Garnet made a similar point, a recommendation in terms of how we can change the image idea of fathers to become more positive than the ultra negative one that we now have in our midst.
So we can change it.
It can be changed slowly, but it can be changed.
Reverend Roper, I'm sure you probably did not know that Dr. Chisholm was listening. Tell us.
I was a devoted scholar, and I listen all even to people he does not approve of. but with me, in my case, he will take credit for being there at the early formation stage, so he would listen to me. To correct
anytime, Garnet.
And anytime. Yeah. But let me put it this way. I didn't hear Mrs. Justice Bishop, but I take as a cue, right? It takes something like farm working. The rural peasantry is where cultures are nurtured, right, and sustained. And in our rural peasantry, we have a socio-economic phenomenon called farm workers. So the typical farm worker over the years, it has changed only mildly recently, was given a date, and on that date he would travel to the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Labor, and get a medical test and be on his way, right? He wouldn't have any long preparation. It's about that time, but he doesn't know his flight date or anything. And I've been aware of it for many years. A man who worked for me on my farm used to go on farm work. By that time, my farm had come pretty much to an end. And over time, one summer when he was a younger man, he was in a position to his wife and children came to join him, right? And he had been traveling to the same place for more than 10 years. But it was only when his wife joined and came back that I knew which city he was, what the distance between where his hostel is and where he lived was, and so on. It is almost a detail he never thought of. And then one of the things that struck me, and it has stayed with me, I've used it in a sermon before, because it was so impactful, is that the first year he was able to get a U.S. visa. Remember that farm workers don't even have to have passport, you know, they just get a little card and I put it in there. They're real shutters. But the first year this man was able to get a visa, he came from his assignment upstate New York to attend his daughter's graduation and return to the farm. And that, it seemed to me, was a peculiar and unique experience. The majority of farm workers could not do it because they had no multiple entry U.S. visa.
I've got to stop you there for a second, sir. We're due for the 10:30 news, so we'll continue that when we get back here on The Rock. Stay tuned for the news.
You're tuned to Love 101 FM, and we now invite you to listen to our newscast with Derville. Go right ahead,
Good
Derville.
morning. Thank you, Nadine. Good morning. I'm Derville Graham with your mid-morning news update, written and produced in association with Jamaica's first digital media house, My Jamaica Today, only 3 clicks away, and presented by Love 101 FM, the family station. Now the news. Prime Minister Holness donates tablets to St. Catherine students. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has donated 30 tablets to primary school students in West Central St. Catherine through his Positive Jamaica Foundation. Speaking at the handover ceremony in Pedro last Friday, Mr. Holness said he has a personal commitment to education. He noted that the sector has been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, causing hardships for people who are unable to purchase devices. Mr. Holness also donated a printer to the Garden Hill Primary and Infant School. He disclosed that he has made it a personal mission through the foundation to raise again tomorrow. The curfew came as residents of Southside and Tel Aviv areas of central Kingston have been crying out for intervention from the security forces after 8 people were killed in the area over the past 3 weeks. The killings have been linked to ongoing gang war between genocide and dark side gangs. The turf war have escalated in recent weeks, with splinter groups affiliated with both gangs trading bullets. The curfew boundaries run north along East Queen Street from the intersection with Hanover Street to the intersection with South Camp Road, east along South Camp Road from the intersection with East King Street to the intersection with Water Lane, south along Water Lane from the intersection with South Camp Road to the intersection with Hanover Street, and west along Hanover Street from the intersection with Water Lane to the intersection with East Queen Street. People within the boundaries of the curfew are required to remain within their homes for the duration of the security measures unless otherwise authorized by the ground commander. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is advising Jamaicans traveling overseas that they should observe strict safety protocols to prevent importation of a Delta and other highly transmissible variants of COVID-19. According to Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Desaiso McKenzie, preliminary reports coming out of the United Kingdom indicate that the Delta variant of the virus is 40% more transmissible. And finally, on a sporting note, up to 10,000 fans will be allowed at Tokyo Olympics events. This is according to organizers who are warning the competition could move behind closed doors if the infection surges. A lottery will determine which existing ticket holders can attend. Cheering has been banned, masks will be mandatory, and fans will have to go home straight after the competition. And those are the stories on the watch list in your mid-morning news update, written and produced in association with Jamaica's first digital media house, My Jamaica Today, only 3 clicks away, and presented by Love 101 FM, the family station. I'm Derval Graham, thanking you for listening. Do have a safe and productive day.
Thank you, Derval. You're tuned to Love 101 FM, the family station.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness wishes to advise that no vaccines will be administered on Monday and Tuesday, June 21 and 22, 2021. Persons with their second dose due on these 2 days are asked not to visit any vaccination center, but to await contact from the regional health authorities with details of their new appointment. Second dose vaccinations will resume on Wednesday, June 23 for persons 50 years and older, with a full rollout of second dose vaccinations for all ages in short order. The Ministry of Health and Wellness thanks the public for their cooperation.
As the celebrations around Father's Day have passed and we've headed our
Eat what you grow what you eat.
St. Catherine, it's your week in our I Love Summer campaign. Be sure to stay tuned daily for our special features designed to highlight the parish of St. Catherine. And speaking of highlights and features, tune in this Tuesday, June 22 at 5:30 p.m. for the feature From the Farmer's Mouth that's designed for farmers with guests who are farmers, as we have a chit-chat with our guest, Murphia Morgan, farmer at the Morgan Sunrise Egg Farm in St. Catherine. We'll be talking all things egg farming, and it will be coming from the farmer's mouth this Tuesday, June 22, 5:30 p.m. right here on the family station. We're taking I Love Summer to the nation.
In 13 weeks, telling me about your friend, the story comes straight from the farmer's mouth. Come and hear it for yourself.
Me a forward! Is where you going? What you mean? Me get my vaccine so me can touch the road now. Touch road? You know your ears hard. The health people said this is only the first dose and we need 2 doses to be fully protected. Eh? What you mean? What me mean? We're waiting for the second dose, Mr. Sir. So you try turn your yard and go and follow the protocols. Wear your mask, wash your hand, and keep your distance from other people. Get vaccinated, get back to life. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
PSOJ's Crime Stop Jamaica Unsolved. Your help is needed to solve the double murder of Doreen Hamilton and her son, Arain Hamilton. They were murdered at about 12:55 a.m. on Saturday, September 2nd, 2017, at their home on Cedar Gardens Road in Mandeville. Both mother and son were shot multiple times in the torso and head and died on the spot. Crime Stop is offering a total reward of $250,000 for information leading to the arrest and charge of those responsible. Call Crime Stop Jamaica 311, Solving Crime, Hayes.
Hey, psst, come closer. I want to tell you my secret. My son wears his favorite shirt for everything, and no matter how much he runs, jumps, and plays, it always looks like new and smells really good. My secret? I use Suavitel Superior Care. Keeps my family's clothes as good as new. Suavitel, as soft as a mother's love.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness wishes to advise that no vaccine.
All right, so we thank you so much for staying with us, and it's now time to return to The Rock with Pastor Herro Steve Blair. Go right ahead.
Yes, welcome back to The Rock. Yes, I'm Steve Blair, and you're tuned into your show. I have some very, very special guests today that keep me excited when they're on the show. If there's a topic you'd like to discuss, or you feel that you could be a special guest on this show, give us a call here at Love FM, or you can email me at transformjamaica@hotmail.com. If you have that spiritual passion, knowledge, and background, and would really like to be on the show to talk about an issue that's dear to your heart, this is what this is all about, because people keep calling and saying, thank you for this show. Thank you for informing us. Thank you for teaching us. And that's why we have special guests like Dr. Clinton Chisholm and Pastor Garnet Roper. We're talking today about the father's image. Want to remind you that you can post all your comments on this topic on our Facebook Live and YouTube Live broadcast of The Rock, or send us a WhatsApp message or voice note to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Rock. Voice notes must be no more than 30 to 45 seconds, and turn the radio down as you begin to speak. Well, just want to just look at one or two of the things that came through on Facebook before we go back to our guest. Coming from my little chat earlier, Naomi Douglas says, morning, Pastor Steve. If you don't know people are having problems, how can they get help? People say the young man who did the allegedly murdered the pregnant mother was very quiet and upright. As I've said on this program so many times during COVID, there are so many mental issues. And maybe that's one of the things I can talk with our learned guest with today, because Dr. Clinton Chisholm, we talk about the father's image, but as men, we want to be so strong and perfect, so unemotional at times that we don't deal with the issues that are affecting us mentally. Dr. Chisholm?
Yeah, reality has to step in. I think we have to be honest with ourselves. If we are not fully together within ourselves, we need to seek help. It has been too long that we have been seeing men as, so strong that they don't have any suffering, and some foolish ideas we have grown up with, man no ball and them foolishness there. If you want to cry for your water. If you're hurting, cry out for help and get the help you need.
But for some reason, men like to just lock themselves in the box or go to the bar for a drink. We don't like to go to the doctor. We don't want to hear about no psychologists or psychiatrists. So it's very hard for some men to see themselves, especially they never saw their father go for help. We tell our boys, get up off the ground, you're a boy, take the pain.
But I don't encourage that kind of a nonsense idea, quite frankly. But I'm just weird in that regard. I say to people, you have a sore foot, you go to one doctor to get your sore foot treated. You have a mental issue, seek a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Counseling is just as therapeutic as physical healing. Whatever your need is, your sore foot, you find a doctor. If you have the raw meat, you find fire. Get the help you need and cut the macho pretense, which is not helping anybody at all.
Yes. Let me bring in Pastor Garnet Roper here. Pastor Roper, this image of a man, this image of a father, how do we move to get it right in our society? Certainly there are some great fathers, but at the same time, so many are being brought into the world, growing up, never seen their father or never experienced the real presence of a father who will speak into their life.
Well, I think we are faced with the fact that this is a damaged society. And the damage in our society is nowhere more evident than in the interpersonal relationship between mother and child, between father and child, between spouses, right? This is where the damage shows itself. So if we take men, I was trying to illustrate before the break my admiration for this farm worker who came home to his child's graduation. It struck me at the time that he probably would have wanted to have come many years before that. But in the way the construct of that economic arrangement, it didn't allow him. So whatever desire or needs he had, he kept it in because there was no way to relieve it. Once the opportunity came, he showed his character. And I think we have to put this act of systematically disempowering our men out there for review. The story is of the man who slashed the throat of the young lady who was 8 months pregnant, she said, for him, and then killed himself. Is that it came from allegations of infidelity. And when you are disempowered, you're insecure. And when you're insecure, you're paranoid, and you imagine all of these obstacles. So we can't simply start at the paranoia. We have to go all the way back to the disempowerment, to reconstructing the psychology of our men. Years ago, I had some responsibility for the National Youth Service. And I constructed a curriculum to help in the re-socialization of what was called unattached youth. There were two things that I wanted to do, but could not find the mechanisms to do it during the course of their 2 months, 1 month of training and 6 to 9 months of placement. One of them was to help them get a driver's license, and the other was to teach them to swim, right? Because those are two very, very important psychological tools with empowerment, with notions of one's self-confidence. And what I think too many of our young people lack is an output, a facility, a space where they can be self-confident and empowered. And I think that is where many of the psychological problems that we are seeing manifested in violence come from.
But you're in a position, but almost acting like a father to many boys who did not understand the essence of a father image by saying to them, you need to learn to drive, you need to learn to swim. Those are two very important things that so many of our young boys don't always look at. But I tell you, for me, one of those images of a father is my father putting me in his lap on a park, not on the main road, and saying, "Okay, we're gonna drive." And that's a child, and I'm hearing him say to me, "Don't look left, don't look right, keep your eyes on the road." Those images never leave a child when a father does that which is right.
Yeah. So what we used to anticipate that the home and the family would do, we can't count on. If it does, it is random. It is the exception. So what we have to do is to take those same curricular items and then inculcate it or put it in places like the school or like the church or other ways in which we can compensate for the deficits in early socialization. We have to be intentional about it. We are not acknowledging that the bestial, jungle, cruel conduct that we are seeing in our men are the products of deficits in their upbringing. And we are not intentional in compensating for this lack. And that is what I think we need to do.
Dr. Chisholm, how do we then begin in a society like this, a very dysfunctional, crazy, haphazard society, to frame that correct image of a father? I mean, we do identify there are some great ones, but the society in a whole is suffering. How do we frame that image?
I'm going to throw back to my friend for this because the two things that struck me as similar in the presentation at Barbican by Justice Bishop and by Garnet's sermon, it both recommended from different sources a curriculum item on fathering in the family life education program in schools that would go back, I think it's like high school or even pre-high school, but that element, and he used a text from the Psalms, and Justice Bishop, her backdrop text was Ezekiel. I looked for a man, I couldn't find one in the gap, therefore you know. And she picked up on Dr. Coombs, I think it was, who had recommended from 2014, I think she said, a recommendation for such a curriculum to be in the school system, to guide boys how to prepare themselves to be fathers eventually. So I'll throw back to Garnet on that aspect of his sermon to illustrate how we can reconstruct the image and reconstruct the young men in terms of shaping them to be potentially good fathers.
Right. So as far back, well, I can't remember what year, probably in the 2001, 2002 period, Robert Gregory, Daniel Fritz, and myself sat down to design a set of values to be inculcated through co-curricular activities in the schools, right? So these include like the Boy Scouts thing, like your football team, like your, netball, whatever, co-curricular activities. And we believe that these would be ways in which we could train people to catch certain values by which they would live. We didn't get very far, although I remember that one of the early lectures that I was asked to give out of this attempt at a design at these values to be taught in the co-curriculum, that I went to give the talk at Wilmer's Girls' School. And I was talking about punctuality as one of these values. But in order to get there, I can't remember how I got to it. I made a point that there is an overhead crossing at Morosco Road, that I said that it would be important for both teachers and students to use the overhead crossing in order to get the students to use it. And the teachers objected strongly. After them know to cross road, them not pick me. And they would not agree with me at the value of all of them using the overhead crossing in order to ensure that the students would use it, in order to ensure that no student would be a victim of a vehicular homicide. I just couldn't get the point across. And that is where that particular experiment ended. So, however, to answer the question, I think we have to understand that men and women do not learn the same way, or boys and girls do not learn the same way. And what you're going to have to aim at is helping the guys to catch things rather than to be taught things, right? So the values are caught rather than taught. So you have to put them in real life situation, or in situation that approximate real life situation. And in that context, pass on these values or these virtues. And this is precisely what our boys lack. They lack visible examples of the things we want to do.
Okay.
I don't see boys crossing and running with their two fingers like they have a gun in their hand. The most dominant image in many of our young people's psycholization is a gunman. And we have to reverse that.
Let me just throw this at you, gentlemen. I had a situation this week where I realized that the person I was dealing with, I got upset with them. But eventually, as I thought about the process, they did not know that what they were saying or what they were doing was wrong. Part of the problem in our society, therefore, is that maybe some of the fathers don't know what it means to be a good father. They don't have the example. Maybe some are trying because they want to be what they did not get. So let us take the next 8 minutes and look at what are the mistakes, what are the problems out there that are creating bad images. What is the bad things that are being done that are not helping our society to move forward?
Well, I think this love affair we have with telling stories of men's failing, whether it is in terms of predatory sexual behavior or spousal violence, I think I call it the law of reverse effect, right? So the more you talk about it, the more examples there are to talk about. It's almost like you're recommending the conduct, like free advertisement. And I think we have to resist that temptation to repeat these stories and to give them a life beyond the original incident. I think we have to get away from it. And then I think we have got to the view that vice is virtuous in Jamaica. So badness is an honorable thing. And it's one of the things we promote unwittingly when we tell our stories of what is funny and so on. And I think we have got to reap the whirlwind. So we know how dreadful these things are. We have to resist all love affair with what is not cute or funny. It is downright dangerous and cruel, you know.
So
And the issue,
go ahead.
sometimes I did something reckless some years ago. Thinking back on it, I was really, too reckless. I was in the plaza in Spanish Town where I lived for quite a while. I forgot the name. I think it's LOJ Plaza. I saw a little boy, just like we'd have said humorously, just come out of eggshell, roughing up one lady, a pregnant lady. So we go to him and say, you're talking to a lady like that, boy? And we grab him up in his shirt and lift him up off a ground a little bit and put him back down and say, you must learn to respect women. I realized later after I did that the boy could have stabbed me or shoot me. But sometimes you have to run that risk. I did it with a special constable too when I was in Montego Bay. But sometimes you have to run the risk just to teach them, maybe at the pain of your pain, or the risk of your life, maybe, that some things are not to be done in Jamaica. People, we have the biblical thing, such a thing is not done in Israel. Well, my Israel is Jamaica. Such a thing is not done here. We're not going to put up with this nonsense. You don't talk to a woman like that. You don't treat a woman like that. And if you think you have a reason to beat a woman, you just don't do it if you're a sensible, respectable man. You just don't do that. So sometimes you have to run that kind of a risk just to say, look, I have lived my life for a number of years. I have had the inclination to do X, but X is wrong. I'm not going to do it. No matter who they do it, me not do it. Kind of right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think part of the problem is I don't think we understand how amoral this society is. So we are still thinking in terms of right and wrong. When the people are only listening to us in terms of my right, right? And whether or not in this action or that there is an opportunity for economic and personal advancement. So we have got to take that narrative on. Yeah, I mean, the frontal examples are good. But that can't be your first thing. If your first intervention with a young person is to correct them, they're not going to listen to you. Your best bet is to pass them and tell them good morning, establish a relationship, and should the day arise when you need to correct them, then you have a head start,
Yes. Well, this whole thing of the father image, as we get ready to go into a break, I mentioned that the church has this big role. We talked about it last week. The power of mentoring. I'm dealing with so many young men, even in my community where I live. I see boys on the field playing next door, and I go things with them. But when I ask the question, where's your father? He's not there, or he's dead, or has not been around. Things in their own lives, and they talk about not knowing their identity. I realized that some of what Clinton was speaking about earlier, Dr. Chisholm, in terms of correcting people on the street. You may call it foolish, Dr. Chisholm, but I've had to do it so many times because, as Dr. Roper says, the society is so immoral. We don't know what we're doing is wrong. So the corrective elements of society have to take a stand. So maybe our church is too quiet outside the walls of the churchism.
And maybe we need to modify the Sunday school lessons that we prepare and teach youngsters, especially young boys. Doctor?
I think we need to, the church is operating in a silo about these, correct doctrine or correct conduct that it wants to convey. And what is needed is for the church to resume a role in the community, where people are just neighbors and citizens and parents and community members. And that is where their religion is to be seen. when you go to the market, who you give a ride, how you resolve your little conflict just out there. That's your church, that's your religion. And it is in that context when the little boy on the corner, if it were a different kind of context, I have stories I could tell you till the cows come up of a lady who used to work at a bank, and on her way home each afternoon, she would see two boys begging. And after a while, she developed the habit of buying 2 patties to give them. So she knew that they were begging, and she planned them into her day. And she gave them the patties. And she said that one day she went to a market. And while she was in the market, 2 boys ran up to her and greeted her. And she didn't immediately recognize them. But soon she realized that it was they. And she took them from the market because they lived near there, and went with them to meet their father and the rest of their household. Their mother had died, and begging was what they did to kind of survive with their father. And she bought them a chicken, and then she planned them into our regular weekly grocery shopping. We planned the family. But I didn't see her for a while. I no longer was a part of the church. But the story kept in my mind because she told it in one night testimony meeting. So one day I was leaving the island, and I saw her at the airport. And I went up to her to ask her about these boys, so what had happened with them? And she was so glad I asked. She told me that the pair of tennis shoes she was wearing was given by one of them. And the 35 US that she had in her hand as part of her travel was given by the other. That one was living in Canada and the other was in Montego Bay. And she told me how gracious and good these boys now became men. And she became a part of their family.
Great story, Dr. Roper. We've got to go to another break. I just want to say, that's a great story. Great story. The boys on the road need that interaction. One of them bought me gas one day. I tell you, we'll talk about that more when we come back. Otis Lee on Facebook says the bad things that is affecting nation is the music. People are drawing to music. The content needs to change. Boy, the church have some work to do. We'll be right back on The Rock.
I tell you, listening to the men today inside The Rock, wow. And what a story from Pastor Roper. And you getting gas, I need to find some men to help, boys to help. Awesome indeed. You're tuned to Love 101, and this is The Rock. We'll be back in just a moment.
Brought to you by Parenting Jamaica, a program of the I Believe initiative.
Parenting is the most difficult job in the world. Thankfully, Parenting Jamaica has some tips to help you do a better job. Here's one. Parenting doesn't stop when your babies go off to high school. They still need guidance. Still check to see if the homework was done. Still ask about their days. Still give them random hugs and kisses inside the comfort of their home, that is. You don't want to make them seem vulnerable in front of their friends. This may lead to a social battle in the home. Dealing with teens is tricky business, so parent with caution. To find out more about parenting styles, visit the Parenting Jamaica blog at parentingjamaica.com or follow us on Twitter at parentingjam.
A Moment for Parents was brought to you by Parenting Jamaica, a program of the I Believe initiative.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling blessed.
We're inside our I Love Summer campaign, and St. Catherine is our first stop. So this Testimony Tuesday inside Alive, June 22. Join us for another show packed with good music and inspirational stories. Stick around for Prayer Blast at 2 o'clock and then 2:15 inside the evidence. We hear from Rivoli born and bred Christopher Allen. He will join us to share his story, how he came to Christ after being a gunman for years. Then at 3 p.m. we go beyond the pulpit of Bishop Ron Edwards, ODJPMO. He's from the Lighthouse Worship Center, St. Catherine. All this and more will come alive on the family station, Love 101.
Everybody wave, get something away.
49 years later and still going strong. Under the Law helps you to know your rights and how the laws of Jamaica can help you defend those rights. The program is brought to you on Tuesdays by the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, providing opportunity, stability, and social protection. Under the Law, Tuesdays at 6:20 a.m., 2:55, 6:45, and 9:10 p.m. on Love 101 FM.
Anytime me taste any Grace products, me and my friend them a fi bust dance moves. I fi run to the pot when me granny a boy soup. Grace food products, in that make it go down smooth. The taste that moves you, fuel the vibes anytime when the day Grace food span the ends. Yeah, the taste that moves you, from the spices move you. Everybody shout out Grace.
When the food sweet, we dance. When the vibe nice, we love. The taste that moves you, Grace bringing the food you love.
Nothing moves your vibe, your mood, or your appetite like the taste of Grace.
Many of our brothers and sisters lose hope when diagnosed with HIV. Some lose their will to continue being a part of society. Others are despaired by the challenges of keeping up with their treatment. We understand. But remember, people with HIV live normal and progressive lives every day. You can too if you get back on track with your HIV treatment. Live for you, live for someone, live for something.
Get back on track, get back to life.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Well, it's now time to get back to the program with our men on the mission. Bishop Herro Steve Blair, Reverend Clinton Chisholm, and on the phone, Dr. Garnet Roper. It's now back to The Rock.
Yes, welcome back. Our topic today, the Father Image. Post all your comments on this topic on our Facebook Live, The Rock Broadcast, or send us a WhatsApp message or voice note at 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Rock. Voice notes must be no more than 30 seconds, and of course, turn the radio down as you send those voice messages in. You can call the studio lines 968-8327, 968-8328. You have two honorable, great Jamaican pastors, preachers, theologians on the program today, and they are very deep men, and we aim, as always, to right the wrongs and to make our society better. Looking at Facebook, Naomi Douglas says, yes, we need to modify the Sunday school lessons to teach real-life stories. And that is a great point following the point made by Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper earlier. So, Dr. Roper, you were giving your story about the lady, and you also mentioned earlier the changes needed. You can start with your story, but I really want to look at the changes of Sunday school, the changes of our church services to really impact the real life situations of our men and our society.
Well, I've been a long-standing believer in the increase of, shall I call them, social activities at churches. So, for example, I believe in hikes and beach parties and the like as the way, as well as football and netball and table tennis teams, as the way to reach our youth. And cultural expressions, music and so on, but not just music, singing songs from Australia and from Texas, but our own songs, and songs which are not done with the church inside the building, but outside, right? I believe that's how we should reconstruct church to include these activities. And the same thing for Sunday school. Sunday school should be on Saturday afternoon, when you can take the children to somewhere, or Sunday afternoon for that matter, and get a chance to know them and for them to know you, so you can have an influence beyond a kind of chalk and talk approach to things. And I think the conversations in the Sunday school should also include the news of the week, What has been
Dr. Roper,
yes.
I agree with you 200%. When my award came on as the Young Caymanian Leader of the Year, what I had done was I never carried the children from my home community to my church. I never carried the children from my church group into church. I always took my home group out on Fridays, my church group out on Saturdays, and we went for pizza. We sat on the beach. We talked about the issues. We talked about family. We talked about work, and we made it very relatable. And it's always the greatest feeling now to look back and to hear them calling and say, Pastor Blair, thank you Thank you for picking me up off the road. Thank you for taking me home. And my father did not want to come back in the house because of me smoking ganja, but you took me to your own home. So there needs to be that connection, that real life connection that helps them establish that figure, firstly, of the fatherhood of God and a good father image that will help them to respect others.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, on Sunday morning, I'm going to go on the mission field to Zambia, and I'm in the kind of sending off. So the Gregory Baptist, which is where I go, and was received in Clinton. We're happy to know that. Had a little bit of a commissioning service on Sunday morning for me. And to begin with, Pastor Carl Henglin told a story about my involvement at an early stage of his ministerial career. He said that he needed to do his Caribbean studies, and he asked, and I agreed and facilitated him at the seminary. And he talked about how I helped him. The important thing, Steve, is that I do not have any recollection of doing this. But here it was, 30 or so years later, he's honoring me. And he tells the story, a story I myself did not remember. And I think that this is the impact one stands to make on people in those social spaces, where you're unself-conscious about your own self, and you're just doing what you think is needed for them. And that is where we need to renew the connection between morality and spirituality in the society.
Yes. Elsa Knight says on Facebook, I believe that it all starts at home. Parents should live a life before their children that they can emulate. Whether you are a single parent or couples, children live what they learn. Well, obviously, Elsie, we're in our society, our children are learning, our boys are learning to beat women, to not be responsible, to spend their time on the roadside in many cases. But there, as we see, the Clinton Chisholms, the Garnet Ropers out there who are speaking into others' lives. So here's a situation. Dr. Clinton Chisholm, the home should be the place. The father at home should be the person, but it's not happening.
It's not happening, and we must not give up on those who are failing at home, because change is possible. Might be difficult, but it is still possible. And so even a bad father can reconstruct his image over time. If you need help with that, you can get help. There are several agencies in the society that can provide that. So don't give up on yourself. If you're not being the kind of a father you want to be now, determined to get help to be better. And we're all growing people. I know I've made blunders in raising our children. And 2014, 2015, I took the maybe unwise, but I think it was helpful for me. I sent them before I did my Father's Day sermon. I said, look, I'm not going to go the normal way. I sent them, I said, guys, tell me honestly, what did you want me as your father to do with you that I didn't do while you were being raised? Because they're grown now on their own, have their own families. Or what did I do for you that you'll never forget, that your father did with you? And it was quite interesting and revealing. I could have predicted my son's approach. My daughter's one took me completely by surprise. But those are realities. You grow, you blunder, you grow, you can develop, you can make mistakes, but you can confess and repent, and your image can be reconstructed positively. So I don't want any father listening to us to give up on himself because you have not been the kind of a father that you should have been or that you would want to be. You can change for better. And if you need help, you can get help. There are several agencies now in the society that were not there like 30, 40 years ago. They are there now. So you can avail yourself of the help that you need to be a better father, despite your history of being a not so good father. Don't give up on yourself.
Yes. There's a WhatsApp message. As your guest said, people think it's cute to do some things. Look at the video of the two little boys smoking and cursing and adults laughing. Wow. Obviously, Dr. Roper, the examples are definitely impacting. whether they be positive examples or negative examples. We are doing things that the youngsters are grabbing a hold of.
Well, this is where I feel we have to kind of curb the social media instinct to promote what is despicable. You know, there are so few examples that are being circulated that are viral of the good thing in children or in adults. And I think that that is where we have to recover. I would have to say, just to the point that Clinton made, that parenting, fathering is a lifetime occupation. You're still a father, even when you're children, when you're a grandfather, right? Mm-hmm. And some of the things that you fail to do, my son tells me that I never attended a single one of his graduation. Every time he was graduating from something, I was speaking at somebody else's graduation. Mm. And it's funny that, you know, I play that scene over in my mind, and I keep saying, well, which of the graduation should I have given up? You know? Which of the ones should I have given up? Or, you know, in other words, but I can't, because it's gone already. So what I have to do is to play the role of father in the ways that the opportunity present themselves. Now that I know that I failed to go to any of his graduation. Mm-hmm. You know, I would that, you know, it was to my strength that I was always being invited to everywhere to do these things. But it was a weakness as a father, because I missed the fact that I was not present at the other graduation, but I was present at his sister's graduation, he tells me. It's a direct coincidence, you know, it's nothing more than that.
Yeah. But, you know, this is a great point, Dr. Roper, because my mom often not argues, but she'll mention, you know, that sometimes I'm speaking and I speak about my father. And of course, they both have brought strong influences into my life. I'm sure my mother is listening at the moment, because that's my mom. That's what she does. But as a boy, 40 years ago, I can remember myself in high school playing cricket and looking over to the fence, and my father's parked there. He didn't do it every week, but he did it occasionally. He may not remember, but it stood out for me that he was there. It stood out for me that when my mom went to study, that he came home every day and played cricket in a small garden with his sons, or table tennis or pool. Do when he sits down to play dominoes with his brothers and friends, and I'll sit at the table to make up the fourth man or something, and he'll talk about what he did to invest in a property, or how he saved his money that he got that was not a part of his salary. Those things have lingered in my spirit from a father, by him opening his mouth or by his actions. So when you talk about the speaking at the graduations and stuff, I would also throw at him and say, well, as a child, you wonder why pastors' children give the most trouble themselves. But I can say that I thought he would spend his money on the church more than on me. I thought I didn't get toys. He would probably say, yeah, I gave you a fire truck. But I can remember him buying a mic for the church. So you're hitting on something, Garnet, and also Clinton, that says that children remember what we do.
Oh yeah.
Or don't do.
Or don't do.
Indeed.
Wow. So the image is being developed.
It is a richly rewarding thing. Sometimes, you know, I don't get to hear the stories of how they think I was memorable. But what they have become, I talk about them, you know, how good they are at what they do, you know. Mm. I picked up a book this morning at my daughter's house. It is a book called The Way of Death, but it traces the slave trade in Angola, and it must be about 1,500 pages. So I asked my daughter, had she read the book? And she said she did for graduate studies. You know, and I smiled to myself, because just looking at the book can be intimidating, you know. You know, you feel you should skim it rather than read it, but she read it. But that is a tribute to the historian that she has become. And I, therefore, I'm happy to be her father, you know?
Wow.
I tell you what, that at my expense, when Sam was, our boy was 9, I was walking with him near Fellowship Tabernacle when it was on 58 and a half, halfway tree road near to the
Next line.
Near to
API, GIS.
United Church, yeah.
Right. So I was holding his hand, walking on the sidewalk, and I saw a lady approaching us, and the lady was, the angle of her eye told me that she was looking at my boy. It wasn't, I'm not tall, but it wasn't elevated enough to be on me. So when the lady came close, I said, "Why are you looking at me son like that?" She said, "Give him to me." I said, "What you want me give me one boy?" She said, I said, "What you want him for?" He said, "Him handsome. Listen to my boy beside me. Petite does run in the family." So me just kind of squeeze the hand and me tell him, say, easy you can get right out of the wheel, boy. Okay, yes, his mother's good looks fine, but he bears my marks on his body and in his personhood. But he and I are close friends. My wife said she married a clone and she gave birth to another one. He's just like me. You watch him and you realize that she's a boy. This.
Yes. I tell you, one of the most favorite gifts I've ever received from my children, I got from my son. He was a student at Temple University, and I had gone to look for him from Jamaica. And I rented a car as always, and we went downtown Philadelphia. And then, if anybody's acquainted with downtown Philadelphia, pretty busy. And he said I should wait there for him. And I didn't have a good park or anything, but he went. He must have been gone for half an hour. And then at the end of half an hour, he came and he presented me with a copy of Noam Chomsky Manufacturing Consent, which is a really seminal important work on communication. He had put the book on layaway at Clinton. I never knew anybody could do that. He put the book on layaway and pay for it little. And when I came to visit, he went and fetched the book and gave me. So I remember it is just such a big thing. First of all, to see the book. Secondly, to know that it will be a book that I value. I've since given copies of it to other people. Including political leaders. And I think that particular book from Noam Chomsky is a most precise interpretation of what you face now with social media. But he bought it from many years ago. And I was so flattered by how he went about to buy it. He didn't have the money, put it on layaway and pay for it little.
Yeah, man. Serious thing.
Let me ask you a question, gentlemen. I'm going to put you on the spot. I want you to answer 2 questions. Firstly, the father image. What is the best thing you've ever done to, or can remember, to create your father image for your children? And then secondly, what is the worst thing you've ever done to affect that image as a father? If I can ask those questions.
Let me start.
Those are tough questions for me because I can't think about what I've done to be a father in the public domain and to be a father of children. And I can talk about it because others have come back and talked about it to me. But I don't know. I have to try and think hard now what would I consider the worst thing. But maybe I should ask my children and then when they tell me, then I can but I don't know.
Yeah, well, when I asked our children to tell me about what they will never forget and what they would have wanted, our daughter was quite clear. She wanted me to interfere in her life more. So I said, "Darling, that's not your father. That's not me. If you ask me a question, I'll offer you my comment, but I'm not going to invade your privacy." She wanted me to be a little bit more inquisitive when she was younger, and boys were showing interest in her. I said, that's not me. If you ask me about a particular boy that I have met, then I would probably tell you my comment. But that was the one thing she regretted, that I did not be more inquisitive in her life.
Is that a manly thing? Because I feel I feel sometimes if I can put my father on the spot, I hope he's not listening. Um, let's start with my mother. My mother would call every week because I've lived abroad since I was 15 years old, back and forth, and she'll call every week. How are you doing? What's happening? I come back to Jamaica. I'm working at Youth for Christ, and you know what that's like. I'm not getting all the money I should be getting at times, and she's asking, "Can you pay your light bill?" My father, on the other hand, expects me to come to him and say, "Daddy, I can't pay my light bill," and
Yeah.
I'm just not doing that, you know. So is it women will ask the question and men won't?
Garnet, you take that.
No, I'm a problem solver. What is the problem? I anticipate. I leave you with the kind of small things, and I will try to deal with the bigger things. But my children are very, very particular about their right to let you in rather than you barging in. And maybe that's because of who I am, you know.
But one is going to barge in more than likely and ask the question.
Well, they can. Women have a little bit more slack than men do. I deal with the big things, and they have throughout the years come to me once the problem is major.
Yes, and I think that's the same answer I would give. If the problem is major, I will probably show up and say that, but not about a bill, not about something like that. But certainly it makes a difference. I did ask my children several years ago those two questions. We sat at a table and I said, each person must now tell everyone around the table, mother, father, and brother or sister, what is your favorite thing about them and what is your least favorite? And the least favorite comes back to something that both of you would have said earlier somewhat, that they would have wanted maybe equal attention to what everybody else seems to get. And we feel we give that. But on the other hand, when I asked, what is the favorite thing about your father? This is something that stuck with me. And both children said, you are a praying father. We can depend upon you to pray for us. We can depend upon you to go to God on our behalf. And that me. That they know that I'm going to talk to God, despite all the bad things in my own life. That has stood with me. We're going to go to a break. Going to encourage your phone calls. We only have another half an hour on the program, and we want to hear what you have to say about the father image. We want to hear maybe your pain. We want to hear maybe your shame, or we want to hear your positivity of what has taken place. So 968-8327, 968-8328. Once again, 968-8327, 968-8328. Also, we're on Facebook and on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is 9973125. We want to hear from you. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much. You are tuned to Love 101 FM and you're listening to the program The Rock. We'll be back in just a moment.
We're inside our I Love Summer campaign in St. Catherine is our first stop. So this Testimony Tuesday inside Alive, June 22. Join us for another show packed with good music and inspirational stories. Stick around for Prayer Blast at 2 o'clock and 2:15 inside the evidence. We hear from Riverly born and bred Christopher Allen. He will join us to share his story, how he came to Christ after being a gunman for years. Then at 3 p.m. we go beyond the pulpit of Bishop Ron Edwards, ODJPMO. He's from the Lighthouse Worship Center, St. Catherine. All this and more will come alive on the family station, Love 101.
Everybody wave, get something away.
We have been asked to announce the death of Corlett Hall. Corlett Hall, Touches of Claremont St. Anne, died May 17, leaving children Devero, Davane, Asani, Sasha Lee, and Micah Lee, dear friend, sister, two brothers, his nephews, other relatives, and friends. Body of Corlett Hall touches leaves Delapena's funeral services, Brownstown, Wednesday, June 23, to the Claremont Cemetery, St. Anne, for funeral service and interment at 1 p.m. May her family members and friends find peace and strength during this time, and may her soul rest in peace. You're tuned to Love 101.
Eat what you grow, grow what you eat.
St. Catherine, it's your week in our I Love Summer campaign. Be sure to stay tuned daily for our special features designed to highlight the parish of St. Catherine. And speaking of highlights and features, tune in this Tuesday, June 22 at 5:30 p.m. for the feature From the Farmer's Mouth. That's designed for farmers with guests who are farmers, as we have a chit-chat with our guest, Murphia Morgan, farmer at the Morgan Sunrise Egg Farm in St. Catherine. We'll be talking all things egg farming, and it will be coming from the farmer's mouth this Tuesday, June 22, 5:30 p.m. right here on the family station. We're taking I Love Summer to the nation.
In 13 weeks, tell a neighbor, your friend, the story comes straight from the farmer's mouth. Come and hear it for yourself.
And now we turn to the program The Rock with our men, the host, Reverend Herro Steve Blair, Reverend Clinton Chisholm, and online Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper. Over to you.
Yeah, I'm just so honored to be here with these gentlemen today. They are top of the line. Garnet, you're going on mission Sunday.
Going on what?
You say you're going on missions on Sunday?
Not Sunday, I'm going at the end of July.
Okay, boy, I envy you if I can do that and still be saved. Because for me personally, looking back at the life of my parents, my mother being the first missionary for the New Testament church to Antigua, and then both my parents being missionaries at Cayman, I just see myself as a lifetime missionary born on the missions field. When I hear of you going and others been over there to Zambia and other places, it just makes me say, boy, this is what the church is all about. And there are wonderful people in Jamaica who believe in serving. Yeah.
Well, I've always wanted to go to serve in Africa at the end of my career, and I'm now retired. So I regard it as an opportunity. I mean, the word missionary conveys something which I don't necessarily feel comfortable with, where I am civilized and I'm going to make other people civilized. This is how the missionaries approach their thing. But from the point of view of sharing my gifts and resources to empower others and to make the church and the name of Christ, to advance it, in my lifetime in the world, is what I think I'm doing. So I'm going to teach at a university owned by the United Church in Zambia, and they are in a program jointly delivered with the University of Western Cape in South Africa. Zambia is a landlocked country surrounded by immediately shares borders with 6 other African countries. And then, there are some other big ones beyond the other border. So Zimbabwe shares border with South Africa, with Zambia, but also with South Africa. So you pass through a little slither of Zimbabwe and you're in South Africa, so it's really wonderful.
But you're showing through your leadership to your children, to your church, to your family, to your people, that the Garnet Roper I know is from the missionary church. The Garnet Roper who's been on the program has talked today about being at the Baptist church. And now Garnet Roper is talking about being involved with the United Church's work over there in Zambia. That says that you're not locked into
all of it is church. It's church,
What was that?
What's common to all of them is church, the kingdom of God.
Yes, and that's important because we could grow up and say we're only a part of the missionary church because that's where you pastored. But that's not the point. The point is you are making yourself available to the kingdom, and that's a good fatherly thing, not just for your children, but for the many who've come through your loins. So, yes.
Right.
So,
thank you. You speak of it kindly, but I wasn't trying to make any statement. I just trying to go, do my little thing. I'm going to teach Hebrew. I'm going to teach something I've never taught. I'm going to teach church history.
What?
The general church history.
Yeah,
and I'm going to teach Old Testament theology. But
you're quite able. Maybe it's an appropriate point to say, Garnet, as a member of the batch of 78 from Jesus, our prayers and our love will cover you.
Thank you very much.
I promise that will come if you need us, but we will pray from afar.
No, I tell everybody that I have space and I can take care of them from the airport to my house and back to the airport. If they can get there, I will look after them. And then we will take the train up to Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. It's 50 hours, but it's only 37 katra to go. So we will have wonderful time. I want to stimulate a trek between Jamaica and Zambia and Southeastern Africa,
I'll be right behind you. So there's a question on the screen from our producer. And we throw this out because obviously so many of our listeners are females. To what extent are mothers responsible for these images society has of fathers? Wow. And what needs to be repaired or replaced? And where do we start? That's a threefold question. How do we address this as we get ready to move towards the end of the program?
One little point I picked up in terms of psychologists talking about the impact, the negative impact of absentee father. They say mothers can help to re-image the father by never talking badly about the father in the presence of the child or the children.
Excellent.
Don't cuss them out, your workless par, your missing par, that kind of a thing. Okay, you feel it is maybe worthless, he has been missing for years, but don't speak like that in the presence and hearing of any of your children, because that is going to just complicate the problems.
So important. Yes, go ahead.
There is no doubt that the Jamaican man is a damaged brand. And the women, Jamaican women, may be responsible for it in part, but and victims of it in part. And in a way can't help themselves but believing that the man is somehow to be doubted and not to be trusted. There's something deeply embedded in our DNA that approach men like that. But men have not helped themselves either.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? I mean, some of the stories I read in today's newspaper, you wonder what really is in the water. What has happened to these boys and men? But I was very intrigued. In fact, I thought about it this morning because in this morning's newspaper account, there is the story of the fellow who slit the throat of his baby mother and killed her, and whom the police rescued from a mob. Right?
Yes.
The police rescued him from a mob that was going to kill him. And then he died in custody. And the police says, at his own hands. He hanged himself. And his mother, comes protesting. The first time you hear about her, you hear about her when he cut the throat of the woman, nor about her when he's being rescued from an angry mob. But she now speaks to blame the police for his demise.
Mm.
And I don't know whether the police are to be blamed. I don't know. I just thought about the juxtaposition, that somehow or the other, her interpretation of her role tells herself that this is what she must do.
And you know, there was an element from Justice Bishop's speaking Sunday morning that I want to just highlight. I concurred with her view. When you look at some of the experiences of the behavior of men today, there's no escaping that. You can't but invoke the devil. I don't go to it readily, but you can't but invoke the devil. The behavior is bestial. I mean, nobody should be a normal human being can behave that way. But it's so rampant, so regular, not just in Jamaica, but also here in the States where I'm temporarily residing. You know, it's crazy.
In Babylon.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing though, just to complete the answer to Steve, they say that a father's neglect will produce a violent criminal, but a mother overweening her son will produce a sociopath. And when I worked, following things in the prison and so on, that multiple murderer very often is a sociopath, could be traced back to the overweening action of his mother.
Yes.
You know the kind of mother that will go beat her teacher when she tried to reprimand her son?
And we're seeing a lot of that in our society. I know it's not a Mother's Day program, but we have to allow mothers to understand the role that a father does play, because the father is not going to be as tolerable of situations normally, and may make greater demands for discipline or change, whereas that love of a mother seems to cover a multitude of sins.
When I was growing up and going to school, the popular adage that a mother would tell a teacher, say, just beat him, but just save the eye. Nowadays, they take out the teacher, eye.
Yeah, well, so, the thing is not gender specific, right? So let's remember that the damage has been done both to our men and our women, and each and any of them is capable of great virtue or great damage,
How do we move forward when we have so many children and adults who that bad image of a father or that absent image of a father? Young people who don't know that father's love and that father's discipline.
Well, two things I would say. One is we always move forward one life at a time. So one child. You can't save the world, you can save a life, So save that life that you can. The other thing is that human beings are capable of exceeding their circumstances. Recently, a man was doing some work for me at my house, and we had a little time to talk. And he told me that he has 3 children, but he himself did not know the love of a father. But he said that he spends his time with his children at his feet. He's giving them what he knows he did not get,
Yeah.
You may have a quarrel here or there whether he's doing it exactly right, but you can't fault him an intention.
Turn the negative into a positive.
Yeah.
Excellent. And that's what we want to say to our listeners today. The many of you who've not had that pat on the back, father who's been there to your graduation or to your school, that father who's tried to speak into your life, that absence does not mean the end of your life. Look for ways to turn that negative into a positive in the life of your own children. Give them your love. Be there. Make something happen that never happened in your life.
And to as a father, see children as belonging to you, even though you didn't give birth to them. You don't have anything to do with them. They are part of your community. Do the best you can for them. You can impact their lives so that they can pay it forward, as the Americans like to say, do good for somebody else, even if not directly related to them linearly.
All right. Still want to hear from you. Still want to get your phone calls. I know people are writing in, but the phone line is still open, 968-8327, 968-8328. Very rare that you'll get these two great men on one program together like this. Here on WhatsApp, Leon from Rockford says, for a man to become a good father, or Jamaica producing more and more good fathers, the desires for marriage have to increase among men and the society have to seek after it more than degrees, money, and fame. God created the institution of marriage so we can get good mothers and fathers, and children can get the best care from mother and father. But it is so sad that even in church, marriage is not promoted, and they're telling young people not to rush into it when God said, "Young man, I call on you because you're strong." Comments, gentlemen?
Well, the issue of not rushing is wise counsel. Don't rush into it because it's not like you go for cook food. It's a serious responsibility, and the intentionality has to be to permanent. So it's not a light thing. And usually the statements we make when we're doing wedding ceremonies is quite informative. You have to take time. Nowadays, it's harder to study people. Sometimes I think back humorously. I'm a joker at heart. Garnet knows much about that. We have been friends for a long, long time. I don't take life as seriously as most people take life seriously. But every now and then I say, Miss boy, thank God I'm married already, because nowadays with the gender confusion thing, you don't know who they married. You have to go get a psychiatrist, go in there and check whether the woman are really woman. The man are really man. No, serious something. It's a strange world we're in now.
There are several, sometimes the problem is that the answer, the problem is the question, right? So, marriage is a good thing ordained by God. But the elements of what make marriage a good thing can be had even if there is no marriage. So, for example, unmarried parents are capable of love and nurture, no less than married parents.
That's right.
Right? So you are a parent already. The fact that you were not married does not diminish your responsibility for precept and practice, for example and comment and instruction. For your children, you have to provide them with warmth, affection, example, support, whether you're married to their parent, to their father or mother or not. It is really what it is. Now, I do think that we need to teach relationship skills, including the skill of remaining or being married. That's a skill that needs to be learned. And to be reinforced. And we have to find ourselves in communities that are supportive of permanent relationships. And there's a lot that isn't working well in Jamaica, but we have to start with what it is, that this is what we have. So what we have to do is start with what we have and work to make it the best it can be. So 80% of our children are born to relationships of unmarried parents. 80%, 8 out of every 10. So there's no point now in kind of saying, boy, if they were married, it would be better. We have to start with that fact and then make the homes, make the family live in homes which are mutually beneficial and supportive. And we hope that they will then come out of those relationships and get married when they want to start their own family.
All right, we'll take that and go into this last break. And when we come back, Dr. Garnet Roper and Dr. Clinton Chisholm will give us that final advice on creating that great image of a father. We'll be right back.
All right, the image of a great father. All this and more coming up as we continue the discussion on The Rock.
Become the hero on the scene by taking the COVID vaccine. Get vaccinated as soon as you get all the facts. Don't listen to the rumors. This vaccine might just make it possible for teachers to sit face to face with schoolers. This vaccine make it safer for everybody, from the young to the elderly. Don't you want to go back to living normally when things were more orderly? And if you want to live a long good life, then we all have to do what's right. So let's get vaccinated along with the heroes on the front line.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness wishes to advise that no vaccines will be administered on Monday and Tuesday, June 21 and 22, 2021. Persons with their second dose due on these 2 days are asked not to visit any vaccination centers but to await contact from the regional health authorities with details of their new appointment. Second dose vaccinations will resume on Wednesday, June 23 for persons 50 years and older, with a full rollout of second dose vaccinations for all ages in short order. The Ministry of Health and Wellness thanks the public for their cooperation.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling blessed.
We're inside our I Love Summer campaign, and St. Catherine is our first stop. So this Testimony Tuesday inside Alive, June 22. Join us for another show packed with good music and inspirational stories. Stick around for Prayer Blast at 2 o'clock and 2:15 inside the evidence. We hear from Rivoli born and bred Christopher Allen. He will join us to share his story, how he came to Christ after being a gunman for years. Then at 3 p.m. we go beyond the pulpit of Bishop Ron Edwards, ODJPMO. He's from the Lighthouse Worship Center, St. Catherine. All this and more will come alive on the family station, Love 101.
Everybody wave, get something away.
All right, we're jumping back in the final moments of The Rock. Don't forget that you can call 968-8327, 968-8328, or share your views on our WhatsApp line, 997-3125. We now go back to our host, Reverend Herro Steve Blair.
Yes, welcome back. On Sunday, I watched the television and there were some ads with young people calling to tell their father, I love you. It seemed so difficult for some of the boys. In fact, one said, I've never done this. Another said, this is not something that's regular. This is going to be difficult. The young lady came on and it seemed like a task. I'm sure if it was the mother, this would have been such an easy thing. The I love you moms on TV that we see ever so often seems to be the big deal because mom deserves all of that. But dad, wow. If dad's been there, he's been helping to pay the bills. If dad's been there, he's been helping to give guidance. If dad's been there, he's been helping to make sure that you grow in the right way. But boy, dad, I love you. Such a difficult thing. Gentlemen, as we wrap up today and we look at the father image, the image of that father, how can we just say to Jamaica, firstly to the fathers, this is the way to go, and then to the children, this is the way to grow?
Sorry, we have a caller on the line. Go ahead, please.
Hello, welcome to the
Good
Rock.
morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good
morning.
Good morning.
I am calling from Toronto, Canada, and I must say, powerful, profound program this is. So many things has been said, but I'll just focus on one point, having the experience. So one of you gentlemen mentioned parenting class in high school, and I must let you know that it helps. I reside here in Toronto, and my son brought home his electronic baby. The baby is programmed in the system, so any sign of neglect is registered. I remember going into his room, and there was my son stretched out with his baby on his arm. As the button went and the baby said, whoop, he had to put in that button in the mouth to stop the baby from crying. And you know, gentlemen, I must say, praise be to the Most High. My son is a husband and father of two beautiful girls, 16, and one will be 17 the 1st of July. It did have an impact on his life, I would say. Praise the Lord. And I thank you for doing such a program. As a Jamaican living abroad, my heart is there, and I'm listening always, Pastor Blair, on
Thank you so much.
programs and the powerful programs you bring on from time to time. Bless you. There's more I'd like to address for the time, and others may be calling. I'll say bless you, gentlemen. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and may the Creator of heaven and earth continue to inspire your minds and just keep you going to do what you're called to do.
All right, thank you.
Do fathers, excuse me? Yes. Do fathers want to hear I love you, gentlemen?
Well, I think, well, she should go first, but, early socialization has everything to do with how you navigate certain things. I don't eat crocodile. Don't care who tell me the tail tastes nice. It's part of my early upbringing. My father died when I was 12 years old, so I've never heard it or said it, though he and I have had many conversations when he was alive. And I think that there is a kind of almost a learned homophobia orientation in Jamaica. That song, He Touched Me. There are many men who can't sing it, because they associate touch by a man with a certain kind of sexual interest, and they just can't sing that song. So I'm not surprised by the reticence and reluctance. What I would go on to say, though, is that we need to get rid of this kind of prudential, puritanical, judgmental approach to all sexual behavior to give people a little bit more freedom to become themselves.
Yes, a simple thing I want to just leave with men is that, if you think about it, it's kind of trite, but every grown male is a big man. But you're a father only if there's a child in your life. And we have to add to if the mother confirms that you are really the father, So fatherhood is a status conferred on you by a child, and you have to seize the responsibility of doing the best you can for that child or those children because of the status that they are bequeathed to you. It's hard work, but it's work that a man can manage if your intention is to do the best you can for your child or for your children.
So the question our producer has brought forward. So you've answered earlier, and you said earlier, Dr. Chisholm, that yes, a man can reel and come again. You started off bad, but you can still change the image. So how do we get from being just a sperm donor and a whatless father to being the best dad in the world? Several dads need to hear that today.
Yeah, so recognize that the status is given to you by a child. Honor that status. Take up the other thing now of fatherhood responsibility. Doing the best you can for that child until the child is no longer here or until you are no longer here. But you are responsible for that child's upbringing and care and love. Give that to your child as best you can. My father used to say, when men on earth have done their best, angels in heaven can't do any better. I don't know where you get it from, but remember my father used to say that a lot.
Yes. So important, folks, that we do our best. Men out there, we're speaking to your heart today. As Dr. Garnet Roper says, the same thing the Lord told me when I was coming to Jamaica. Jamaica can be transformed, one Jamaican. And you could be that one through this program today that says that I have not been the father I need to be. I have been neglectful. I have not been a provider. I've not been an example to my son or to my daughter. That father should be the one that says to my daughter, to his daughter, that you need to find a husband like me or better, someone who represents manhood. On WhatsApp, Leon from Rockford is saying, Leon saying, are you saying then that because a lot of children are born out of marriage, as church we should fix this broken without God institution? That's not what they're saying, Leon. Reverend Roper is speaking about the realities of where we are. And sometimes as churches, we tend to say things can only be done if it's done in the institution of marriage or in the way the church says it should be. But there are good fathers outside of the church. There are good men out there in the secular world. And we need to look and learn and continue to make things better.
We have a quick voice note, real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, and you are rocking this morning. Good morning to you all. I tell you, I really sit here and I wish there was time for me to come on the program and really speak about my children and my community. We have to get up and motivate. We got to talk. Last night I was there talking to the young men who digging out their hands, motivating. We have to do something about it. Yes, we have to help the mothers and the fathers. We, the people, the elders, let us help. Going forward, let us get involved.
Thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank you for your time today. Can I give you 30 seconds each to wrap up? Dr. Chisholm.
It's an honor to be a father. It's an awesome responsibility. But by the grace of God, if we become more God connected, as Justice Bishop was suggesting, get more God conscious, we can do a work of wonder in our country with children and in general.
Well, my verse for this period is, as a father pitieth his children, so the Lord pitieth those that love him and fear him. So God almost takes his cue from the quality of example that good fathers can say. And I still hold out hope where the story of Jamaican fatherhood will be positive rather than negative. Thank you for the opportunity. Good to be there with my friend Cheese, and thank you, Steve. All the best.
Thank you, gentlemen. My comment today, there are great fathers. None of us are perfect. All of us possibly may make mistakes. But today I say to all of our fathers, let us look forward to making that difference in the lives of those that God has blessed us with. We have been blessed. We are the ones that have created the present and the future Jamaicans. Let us do our part to make Jamaica a better place by creating that image of a father that will be lasting, positive, and enduring. I'm Pastor Steve Blair. It's been a pleasure to be with you today, and you can give me a call. Yes, you don't know your father. I'm willing to be there along with many others, your churches, your communities, to share in your life. 876-295-9141. If I can't help you, I'll find someone in your neighborhood who can be Jesus in your life. God bless you. Have a great day. And thanks for being a part of The Rock.
Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Kathy, our producer. I forgot about Kathy. I can't leave Kathy out. God bless you all.
Indeed. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening and making it Love 101 and, of course, listening to The Rock. This is your family station.